Welcome to the Fundamentals of Fitness, the podcast where we strip away the myths, simplify the science, and help you understand how your body really works. I'm Alison, and today we're going to talk about something I think almost everyone has been guilty of at some point, believing that if we're not doing more, we're not doing enough. It's an easy trap to fall into. Fitness apps congratulate us for streaks. Social media celebrates relentless discipline. We hear phrases like no days off, rise and grind, go hard or go home. And before long, we start believing that success belongs to the person who's prepared to suffer the most. But that's not what exercise science tells us. The goal of training isn't to see how much exercise you can survive. The goal is to apply just enough stress that your body says, I can handle this, and next time I'm going to be even better. Think back to last week's episode about recovery. We talked about how your body adapts after training. Well, today we're going to take that one step further, because if recovery is where progress happens, then giving your body too much to recover from can actually slow that progress down. So let's start with one of the most important principles of coaching, the right amount of exercise, not the maximum amount. So pop on those trainers or grab that cuppa and let's dive right in. Whenever someone tells me they're thinking about exercising more, I almost never answer with a simple yes. Because the first question I ask myself is, more than what? More than you're doing now? More than your body can recover from? More than your lifestyle allows? Or simply more because you feel guilty? You see, exercise is a bit like medicine. If you've got a headache and someone hands you 2 paracetamol, that's generally enough to help. Taking 20 isn't 20 times more effective. In fact, it's really dangerous. The same principle applies to exercise. Too little exercise and your body doesn't receive enough of a stimulus to adapt. Too much and you begin to accumulate more fatigue than your body can recover from. Somewhere in the middle, there's the sweet spot. Enough to challenge your body. Enough to stimulate change, but not so much that you spend all your time trying to catch up. And the thing is, that sweet spot is different for everybody. For a professional athlete, it might involve 2 or 3 carefully planned training sessions a day. For a busy mum juggling work, children and everything else life throws at her, it might be 3 strength sessions a week and a couple of walks. Neither approach is better. They're simply appropriate for different people. Because your body doesn't compare itself to anyone else. It only responds to the stress you ask it to deal with. Let's simplify some science here for you. Let's think about sunlight. We all know we need some sunlight. It's important for producing vitamin D and supporting our overall health. But if you sat outside in the blazing sun for 12 hours without protection, you'd quickly discover that more isn't always better. Too little sunlight can cause problems. Too much sunlight can cause problems. The benefit lies somewhere in the middle. Exercise works in exactly the same way. Your body loves being challenged. It just doesn't love being overwhelmed. That's why one well-planned workout often produces better long-term results than 3 random ones squeezed into a day because you felt guilty about yesterday. Now, this idea is supported by something known as the dose-response relationship, one of the key principles in exercise science. In simple terms, as the amount of exercise increases, the health benefits generally increase too, but only up to a point. Research consistently shows that moving from being inactive to moderately active provides enormous health benefits. As training volume continues to increase, improvements can continue, particularly for athletes with specific performance goals. However, the relationship isn't endless. Eventually, each additional session tends to produce smaller gains while increasing fatigue and the demands on recovery. The goal isn't to avoid training hard. It's to match training load to your body's ability to adapt. It's a bit like watering a plant. Too little water and it struggles. The right amount helps it thrive, but flooding it every day doesn't make it grow any faster. It simply creates new problems. The same is true for your body. And this reminds me of a lady I coached a couple of years ago. She was absolutely determined to lose weight, and she had incredible commitment. She was going to the gym 4 times a week, walking every evening, taking every opportunity to move more. But every time we met, she apologized. I don't think I've done enough this week. It didn't matter that she completed every session I'd given her. She always felt like she should have done more. More cardio, more classes, more steps. And we dig a little deeper, we realized she wasn't lacking effort. She was lacking confidence. She believed that progress had to feel punishing. And instead of adding another workout, I actually asked her to do less. We kept the strength sessions, we reduced some of the extra cardio, we focused on really nailing that nutrition. We prioritized her recovery. And perhaps more importantly, we changed the way she measured success. Instead of chasing those calories burned, she started celebrating the strength she gained. And her energy had improved, her sleep had improved, her workouts became better quality. And over time, the results she wanted finally started to arrive, not because she'd done more, but because she started doing what mattered most. If you've ever watched the Olympics or followed professional sport, it's easy to assume that elite athletes spend every waking hour pushing themselves to the absolute limits. After all, they're the best in the world. Surely they train harder than everyone else, right? Every single day? But here's something that often surprises people. They don't. In fact, one of the biggest differences between elite athletes and recreational exercisers isn't that elite athletes always train harder. It's that they know when not to. Every training session has a purpose. Some days are designed to build strength, others to improve endurance. Some focus on technique, some are about speed, and some are deliberately easier, allowing the body to recover while still practicing movement. And that might sound strange. Why would the best athletes in the world deliberately train below their maximum? Because they understand something that's incredibly easy to forget. You can't perform at your best if you're permanently exhausted. Imagine trying to revise for an important exam. Would you stay awake for 3 days straight because you thought more studying would always lead to a better result? Of course not. At some point, your concentration drops. You stop taking information in. You begin making mistakes. Your body works in the same way. There comes a point where adding more training stops improving performance and starts getting in the way of it. Let's simplify some more science here for you. Imagine you're trying to charge your phone. You plug it in overnight. By morning, it's at 100%. Now imagine you keep it plugged in for another 3 days. Does it become 300% charged? Of course not. Once it's full, it's full. Exercise is similar. Your body can only adapt to so much training before it needs time to absorb those adaptations. Doing another hard session before you're ready doesn't fast track your progress. Sometimes it simply interrupts the recovery process that's already taking place. Progress isn't about constantly adding more. It's about knowing when enough is enough. One of the cornerstones of modern sports science is a concept called periodization. And this simply means planning training so that different sessions have different purposes and intensities. The research has consistently shown that athletes who vary their training load, alternating the harder sessions with easier ones and building in planned recovery, they tend to improve performance more effectively than those who try to train at a maximum intensity all the time. This approach allows the body to recover, adapt, and continue progressing whilst reducing the risk of overuse injuries and excessive fatigue. It's one of the reasons elite athletes can sustain high levels of performance over months and years, not just for a few intense weeks. And this is something I've seen working with motorsport athletes. People often imagine that every lap during a race weekend is driven at absolute maximum attack, but that's not how it works. Practice sessions aren't simply about being the fastest. Drivers are gathering information. They're learning how their car behaves. They're testing different racing lines, understanding the tyre grip, trying different braking points, building confidence. Even during a race, drivers aren't always driving at 100%. Sometimes they're managing tyre wear, protecting the engine, saving fuel, waiting for the right moment to overtake. They're thinking strategically, not emotionally. If they push flat out every second of every lap, they might be spectacular for a short time, but they probably wouldn't finish the race. Fitness works similarly. Not every workout is supposed to be your hardest workout. Some sessions are there to build you. Some are there to prepare you. Some are there simply to keep you moving. The smartest athletes understand this difference. And this reminds me of one of my clients who came in convinced she needed to train 6 days a week. She'd followed countless fitness influencers online and they all seemed to be in the gym every day. So naturally, she assumed that's what success looked like. But looking at her life, the reality was very different. She worked full-time. She's got 2 kids. She wasn't sleeping particularly well. And by Friday, she was completely exhausted. And instead of adding more sessions, I cut her training back to 3 focus strength sessions each week. They had a purpose. She recovered between them. She stopped feeling like she was constantly chasing fitness. And a few months in, she'd become noticeably stronger. She had way more energy, and her confidence allowed her to wear those little shorts in the gym. And perhaps the biggest surprise for her was that she realized she's been trying to copy somebody else's program instead of building one that actually suited her own life. That's the biggest lesson I try and teach every client. The best training plan isn't the one that looks the most impressive on Instagram. It's the one you can recover from, enjoy, and repeat consistently. So Alison, I hear you say, if the goal isn't to train as much as possible, how do you know when you've crossed the line? How do you recognize the difference between healthy challenge and simply asking too much of your body? Let's look at some of the warning signs that your body might already be trying to tell you it's time to change course. Now, a really big misconception about overdoing exercise is that people imagine it happens overnight. They picture someone collapsing in the gym or suddenly getting injured, but that's rarely how it starts. More often, it's a slow drift. You don't notice at first. You feel a little more tired than usual. Your legs stay sore a little bit longer. Your motivation wavers. You struggle to get out of bed. You convince yourself you're just being lazy. So you train harder, and unfortunately, that's exactly the opposite of what your body is asking for. See, our bodies are incredibly clever. They're constantly giving us feedback. The problem is we're not always very good at listening. Instead of asking, what is my body trying to tell me? We often ask, how can I push through this? And sometimes pushing through is appropriate. Life isn't perfect. Not every workout will feel amazing, but there's a difference between pushing through normal discomfort and ignoring repeated warning signs. Learning the difference is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Let's simplify some science here for you. Imagine your bank account. Every workout you complete is a withdrawal. Every good night's sleep, every nutritious meal, every recovery day, every moment you spend managing stress is a deposit. As long as you're putting back in at least as much as you're taking out, your account stays healthy. You can keep spending, you can keep investing. But if you keep withdrawing without ever making deposits, eventually you'll go into overdraft. Your body can work in the same way. Recovery is how you make those deposits, and without it, your body starts borrowing from tomorrow. And eventually, tomorrow can catch up with you. Sports scientists often talk about functional overreaching and non-functional overreaching. Now, don't let the terminology put you off. Functional overreaching is actually a normal part of good training. You deliberately train a little harder for a short period. Performance may dip temporarily, and then after adequate recovery, you bounce back stronger. That's planned. That's productive. Non-functional overreaching is different, however. That's when the recovery never quite catches up. Fatigue can accumulate. Your performance continues to decline. Motivation dips. Progress stalls. If it continues for long enough, it can increase the risk of illness, injury, and in some cases, contribute to overtraining syndrome. The key difference isn't how hard you train. It's whether your body had enough opportunity to recover afterwards. And this reminds me of a lady who came to me because she couldn't understand why she'd stopped making progress. She wasn't missing any of her sessions. If anything, she was doing way more than ever. She was attending classes most evenings, walking every day, trying to eat perfectly, always chasing the more. We talked and something really stood out to me. She looked exhausted, not physically, mentally. She admitted she hasn't had a proper weekend off in months. Work was really stressful. She was caring for family and aging parents. She felt guilty if she wasn't being productive, though. The gym had become another thing she felt like she had to achieve. So we changed her goals completely. Instead of asking, how can we fit more in? We asked, what can we take away? One less class, one proper recovery day, permission to stop feeling guilty. A few weeks later, she said something that I never forget. Exercise feels enjoyable. Not easier, enjoyable. And that's important because fitness shouldn't constantly feel like punishment. It should improve your life, not another source of stress. I'm going to throw something in again from the pit wall because one of the things I admire most about race engineers is how much attention they pay to the data. They're constantly monitoring the car, engine temperatures, tire pressures, brake wear, fuel levels. They don't wait until something breaks before making the adjustments. They're looking for small changes long before they become big problems. Your body gives you data too. Maybe not on a dashboard, but through how you feel, your energy, your mood, your sleep, motivation, your performance. The smartest athletes don't ignore those signs. They use them. Imagine if a race engineer ignored a warning light because the car's still moving. It wouldn't be long before something failed. Our bodies deserve the same respect. The warning signs aren't there to stop us succeeding. They're there to help us keep going for longer. So if our bodies are constantly giving us some feedback, and if training isn't about doing the most, what does the right amount actually look like? So let's finish off today's episode by building a simple recovery and training framework that you can start using straight away. One that helps you make the progress without constantly feeling like you're having to do more. Now, if you've listened to today's episode and you've realized you've been caught up in this trap of thinking more is always better, the first thing I want to say is this: please don't beat yourself up. You are not the only one. In fact, I'd say it's a pretty common belief I come across as a coach. We're surrounded by messages telling us to hustle harder, push further, burn more calories, never miss a workout, no days off. It's hardly surprising that so many people feel guilty when they rest. But here's the thing, your body doesn't care how many motivational quotes you've read. It doesn't know what someone on social media is doing, and it certainly doesn't reward you for feeling guilty. It simply responds to the stress you place upon it. If that stress is appropriate, you adapt. If it's too little, nothing changes. And if it's too much, well, your body spends all its energy trying to keep up. That's why the goal isn't maximum effort. It's maximum adaptation. And those two things are not always the same. Imagine you're learning to play the piano. If you practice for 10 minutes every day, paying attention, learning from mistakes, and building your skills gradually, you'll improve. Now imagine sitting at the piano for 12 hours on your very first day. By the end, your fingers would hurt. Your concentration would disappear. You'd probably be making more mistakes than when you started. Practicing for longer wouldn't necessarily mean learning more. Exercise is the same. Progress isn't built by cramming. It's built through consistent, repeatable efforts over time. Your body learns through repetition, not punishment. The research into long-term exercise adherence consistently shows that people are far more likely to achieve those long-lasting results when their exercise routine is enjoyable, realistic, and fits around their lifestyle. In other words, the best program isn't the one that looks the most impressive on paper. It's the one you can still see yourself doing 6 months from now. Because consistency always beats intensity that only lasts a few weeks. This is one of the reasons successful athletes and experienced coaches think in years, not just days. And in my Coach's Corner, one of my favorite success stories isn't someone who suddenly started training 6 days a week. It's someone who did the opposite. She had committed to 3 strength sessions each week. She stopped chasing that extra cardio. She stopped trying to earn her food. She stopped feeling guilty on those rest days. And instead she focused on getting a little bit stronger each week. Some weeks she added another repetition. Some weeks she lifted a slightly heavier weight. Some weeks she simply turned up when life was really busy. Nothing was dramatic. Nothing was flashy. But over the course of a year, she completely transformed. Not because she found the perfect program, because she found the one she could actually sustain. And that's what success looks like: quiet, consistent, and repeatable. And I'm going to throw something in again from the pit wall, because one of the things that fascinates me the most about motorsport is the fact that the fastest car on a single lap doesn't always win the race. Sometimes the driver who pushes hardest at the beginning ends up with worn tyres, overheating brakes, or simply nothing left when it matters the most. The teams who consistently perform well think differently. They manage the race. They know when to push. They know when to conserve. They understand that success isn't about being the fastest for one lap. It's about being consistently fast every lap. Our fitness journey isn't that different. Don't build a body that can cope with one incredible week of training. Build a body that can still be moving, lifting, walking, and enjoying life years from now. That's the race we're really trying to win. So for this week's challenge, I'd like you to ask yourself one simple question before your every workout. Am I doing this because it's part of my plan, or because I feel guilty? And if the answer is guilt, pause. Take a moment and ask yourself whether your body genuinely needs another workout, or whether what it really needs is rest. Because making the right decision for your body is always more powerful than simply doing more. And if you remember just one thing from today's episode, let it be this: more exercise doesn't guarantee better results. The right amount of exercise, repeated consistently and supported by good recovery, is what changes your body. Your goal isn't to prove how hard you can work. Your goal is to become stronger, healthier, and more capable for the long term. And that journey is built on one well-recovered workout at a time. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this episode has given you permission to let go of the idea that success in fitness comes from doing more and more. Because the truth is that progress isn't measured by how exhausted you are. It's measured by how well your body adapts over time. And if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you shared it with a friend who always feels guilty for taking a rest day, or someone who's convinced that they have to be in the gym every single day to see results. And if you're enjoying the fundamentals of fitness, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. It really helps more people discover the show and supports me in continuing to bring you evidence-based fitness education every week. So until next time, keep asking questions, keep trusting the process, and remember, stay driven by science and built for performance. I'll see you in the next one.